I like giving advice. It's typically what I've been doing most of my life. It's how I've become known by some people. I've given a variety of advice over the years, but I am not an expert in anything but being myself. So, of course, take anything that I say as my opinion, my perspective. That's it. You are more than welcome to learn about these topics from anybody, and of course, do your own research. I'm just here to share my thoughts and opinions. When I was live streaming on Twitch, as I'm doing right now, as I'm recording this particular bit of advice, a couple of people that remembered me from a few years back jumped in, and one of them was reminiscing on videos that I used to do. And that person did not ask if I was going to do those videos again, and I'm grateful for that. But it kind of set the stage where I talked about what kind of mindset I was in when I was doing those videos. I enjoyed doing those videos then. And then in that moment, years ago, I started to realize I'm not having fun. This is actually starting to make me mad. Like, that's what I was thinking back then. Right now, I'm not mad. Right? I'm good. I'm happy. At this very moment. But then, when I was doing those types of videos, increasingly, I found myself getting more and more agitated. And I don't just mean passionate. I love leaning into things. I love just digging deep. But it was just this palpable anger and frustration because I could not express myself enough in terms of how frustrated I was with any one of those topics. With any one of the things that I was talking about back then. Inevitably, all roads with those types of videos that I did back in the day eventually led me down a path that was not a very joyful path. And I had to stop myself because I just wasn't wanting to spend my time in a negative space. And I think that when this person was bringing up the topic of videos that I used to do, I framed it that way. And, you know, I don't think you should spend time doing things you don't enjoy. Don't spend time doing things you hate if you can avoid it. I mean, you may have to do responsibilities. Let's face it. No one likes doing the trash. It's got to get done. I'm not talking about those types of responsibilities. I mean, the time that you do have, the time that you do control, and this may very well be related to your career as well. Maybe you've been considering a pivot, right? If what you've been doing in your career is not satisfying you, and that's not to say that everything you do in your career needs to satisfy, but I'm saying if it's brought you to this very dark place where you're no longer finding joy in the experience, then you may need to change what it is that you're doing. Something's going to change, because continuing to plow through something that you don't enjoy with the hopes that maybe one day you will enjoy it is folly. I've said this before to certain individuals. I'm like, you can't hate me into loving this. You know, and I think that's very appropriate to say about, you can't hate me into liking the thing that you like, right? You can't hate me into loving something. I can't continue to trudge through something I dislike with the hopes that the payoff on the other end is going to be rapturous, right? I'm just gonna, oh, well, I'm glad I got through that. No. There was no end in sight. There was no goal on the other end. I'm not talking about driving towards a goal, because I'm not saying that you have to avoid hard work. Some people enjoy hard work. Some people not so much. I'm talking about genuinely losing that enjoyment in a process or an experience that you've been used to. And maybe other people have been used to seeing you enjoy that process. But the moment where you find it, toxic's a bit of an extreme word, but no longer viable for your health, you have a personal responsibility to find another path that may not be illuminated yet, but you know that the one you're on isn't the right one. And so that's where I was. I wasn't very happy with what it was that I was doing, and I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I didn't know what else I could have done, and I've done a lot of exploring since then. I've always joked, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and it's very much true. I like giving advice. Like I said, I've been doing that for years for a variety of topics. But this is just critical to me. Like, I just found myself mired in disgust with what it was that I was talking about, because I was so frustrated, and I could not convey that with strong enough words, and I was at my wit's end. So instead of, continuing to live in that negative space, for me, I just like, all right, I can't. And that was a big change for me. It was a huge change, and it could be argued that it was the wrong change to make, but what's my mental health worth? I know that the internet certainly changed. I've certainly changed. But I had to recognize that what it was that I was doing wasn't good for me. Don't spend your time looking for things you hate or tearing down things that you hate as much as driving towards something that you enjoy or pushing for that kind of good. And that's not to say that you shouldn't combat, things that you find to be detrimental. I'm talking specifically about something that you're doing in your leisure time, like your space, the thing that you enjoy doing, the thing that is not a job to you, right? That's probably the most appropriate thing to say. That was probably the crossroads for me, because everything that I had done to that point, everything that I enjoyed, was my quote-unquote job. Well, that went right out the window, because I was like, I've got all these skills, I've gained all this experience, but I'm no longer interested in this one aspect of it. So that was hard. It was difficult. But it was the right decision. I did not want to spend my time dwelling on things that drove me down, that beat me down, that made me sad, and that just were not fulfilling in any way, shape, or form, despite how other people perceived that. I knew it wasn't fulfilling anymore. So that's, I guess, my advice to you is don't spend the time that you have on things that you don't like. Spend it more on the things that you enjoy. This is where I always find it kind of weird when people pile on like they've got nothing better to do with their time other than to tear other people down, or to just jump in with a clearly non-constructive comment. You don't see me going over to forums. Are forums still around? Talk about dating myself. I'll just go over to MySpace. It's right next to Plurk. I'll dig it. Anyway, look it up on Usenet later. Don't worry about it. So you just got to Telnet. You don't see me going on to certain people's accounts when they're tweeting things that I generally don't enjoy. I'm just not going to do that. Like, I got more important. My attention's worth something, right? Why would I take a little bit of joy away from somebody else if they're doing something that's relatively innocuous, right? I don't have a really good example off the top of my head, because you'd think, oh, Chris, why don't you say Star Trek? Because you like Star Wars. Well, I like Star Trek too. I like a lot of the sci-fi, the fantasy, the all that, all those genres. There are a few shows that I don't like, but still. Well, I'll joke around with people, but I'm not going to jump into somebody else's timeline just to bring them down, specifically with the intent to bring them down. Like, that's not reasonable. That's not what I would recommend doing, because not only are you swimming in negativity, but you're forcing someone to get pulled down into that as well. Spend your time doing things that you enjoy, the time that you have, the leisure time. Potentially even your career time, doing things that you enjoy, or at least building towards something that you're going to find fulfilling. Because remember, time's the one thing you can't get back. It's the most precious thing you have. Spend it wisely. Your attention is everything. And with more and more things happening online, it's that much more important for you to spend your attention on things that you enjoy. And I understand sometimes taking in information that's devastating information can be very detrimental. All the more reason that you should not just live and breathe on a Twitter feed. Just reading. Interact. And deepen your knowledge in subjects, certainly. But when it's time and you're feeling distressed, take a breather, walk away. The internet will still be here when you get back. Go do something you enjoy. Maybe you enjoy it. I enjoy current events. Love current events. A huge fan. But one of the reasons I started streaming on Twitch every night, starting earlier this year as like a New Year's resolution, though I rarely set those for myself, was specifically because I found myself wasting so much of my time and energy watching news. And that was my 2020. It was a lot of our 20. We didn't do anything. Life was on pause. And I have a feeling we're heading back into that again here at the tail end of 2021. But I wanted to do something better with my time, something that I enjoyed, something that was a little more productive than watching news. And I got to tell you, I really haven't missed anything. I still read news. I still do watch news, but not as prolifically as I had been. And so spend your time doing things that bring you joy. And if those things no longer bring you joy, I understand how frustrating that could be. But be careful. Burnout is a thing. And the last thing you want to do is see that thing that you enjoy get so burnt that you no longer enjoy it and you actually start to resent it. Because it can happen. It happened to me. So please, find something that you enjoy. Not spend time on the other stuff. And I hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't, don't tell me.